Good morning. It's so great to have as our guest this morning, Mr. Gerald Celente. Gerald is founder and director of the TrendsResearchInstitute, publisher of the TrendsJournal, and of course a famous fact-based prognosticator. So Gerald, as we face 2013, what's ahead? I mean, for example, I'd like to know, before we get into questions of war and economics and, as you mentioned, the fiscal cliff, the crazy fiscal cliff baloney, will the government get away with taking the American people's guns?
I think up to a point they are. They're going to probably put some kind of another ban on assault weapons. And, you know, I was just thinking about here in New York, they're bragging about how low the level of homicides are. And I was saying, well, hey, if there's a gun problem, how come the homicide level went way down? So this is just political capital that they're trying to cash in on. And I think they will get just so far with it. But I don't think they're going to be able to have a total ban on guns. I think it's going to be mostly the assault weapons.
And of course, the so-called assault weapons are just regular rifles designed to look like a military rifle, but they aren't military rifles.
That's right. You have to keep, squeezing the trigger on them. They're much different. But again, they're not looking, Lew, at the cause of this. When you look at the wave of these mass murders that have happened by young people and old, you find one after another, as the reports are coming out, that they're whacked out on some kind of a prescription drug for their mental instability, whether it's Zoloft or Prozac or Ritalin or some combination of those and others. So that's out of the news. Nobody's talking about how these drugs are screwing people up. And all you have to do is listen to the moronic commercials on TV. After they go through showing the butterflies, the flowers, and going, down the path happily, they show, by the way, you may have suicidal tendencies.
No, of course, it's absolutely true. These drugs do have both suicidal and violent reactions in people. And I heard just the other day from Dr. Peter Bregan, who's an psychiatrist, pointing out that in every single one of these cases, the dosage had been changed just before the shooting. Either the dose had been upped, it had been taken down, or these people on their own had stopped taking the drugs. But these drugs are very, very dangerous. And, of course, they're promoted by the federal government. There's no drug war on these drugs. We're all supposed to be on them. Some of these people suggest that the water supply should be treated with these psychiatric drugs to keep us all happy and stupid for the government. But of course, it has horrific results, and you're right, that's never discussed.
No, and the other thing, as I was mentioning, when you look at the trend line, it's when these drugs began to hit the market. And by the way, what they're doing is now as well, without, the gutting of all the social programs. Like when I was a kid, there were the CYOs, the YMCAs, the PBAs, the PALs, the police athletic leagues. And, so kids, I grew up in the Bronx and Yonkers, you had a place to go. And there was some kind of a social structure to keep you straight, whether it was the church, the community, whatever it was. That's no longer there. So what they're doing now is you have a kid that's growing up in a family. What family? The mother's whacked out on some kind of meth or something else. And the kid doesn't know who their father is. They're in a totally dysfunctional situation. They go to school. Guess what? They're disruptive. And you know what they're doing now? Because there's no other social strata to take care of them, they're putting them on these drugs. They're whacking these kids out.
No, it's exactly right. And these... The public schools are by and large run by feminists, are very anti-boy anyway. I noticed that there was a case in Montgomery County, Maryland, adjacent to Washington, one of the wealthiest school districts in the country, where they just suspended a 6-year-old boy for pointing his finger and going, pow.
Yeah, I know.
So,
I have a book here, one of my books with Zizzy gave Honey Boy, and I have a picture in there of me and Teresa McKelvey at our first communion. And we used to sit in the basement of the Christ the King Church, and we used to kiss. We were in love at 7 years old. They say that you reach the age of reason in the Catholic Church at 7 years old. I did. So if a little kid got caught now kissing a girl harmlessly, they would have you on these drugs. If I grew up now rather than then, I would have been whacked out. I didn't fit in a lot of ways. And what I was doing would have been considered antisocial. And it's not only the schools that have become feminized or anti-men, the entire nation is. It's what's happened to America. Guys aren't allowed to be guys. And so what they do is they take it to the extreme. And talking about the education system, and it has to do with one of the trends, just to make this point, we spend about the most per capita than any nation on earth on education. You're seeing kids getting out of college with what, $30,000 worth of debt and holding degrees in worthlessness. If the education system in this country was working even at a moderate level, you think we'd be in the problems that we're in? Wouldn't they have been solved? And wouldn't we be advancing as a higher civilization? It shows you how screwed up it is.
No, it's true. And of course, the government always wants to extend adolescence. They want to extend immaturity, the better to control us. So now, of course, kids don't get out of college in 4 years. It's 5 or 6 years, sometimes more than 6 years. And yes, debts that can be far more than $30,000, could be $75,000.
Yeah.
Then they can't get a job, and they'll never be able to pay this debt back. And of course, they are depressed and sad, and maybe the doctor wants to put them on a drug if they haven't been on drugs before that.
Exactly. And that's where the whole nation is going. It's prescription drug addicted. And then you look at where the violence is now, it's with these, people stealing painkillers. So it's the pharmaceutical, big pharma, everything big in this country. It's too big to fail. It's everything is for the bigs. And by the way, those 4 words to me, too big to fail, capitalism is working fine. Too big to fail has no place in a capitalistic system. So it's the whole, everything has been given to the bigs, whether it's big pharma, big agriculture, big media, you name it. You remember when we were young guys, there used to be hardware stores in our towns. There used to be stationery stores when there weren't just Staples and Home Depot. It was one after another. You're seeing how things have been taken away from the people and brought all over to the bigs.
Well, Gerald, as you pointed out, we've just survived the propaganda campaign called the fiscal cliff. Now, I noticed the markets are up the day after that, although I remember the markets went way up after Nixon put price and wage controls on and closed the gold window. So another great event. So what do we have ahead economically? They're proclaiming all over the world that, oh boy, the U.S. government is finally getting its act together.
Yeah, it's they have a $16.4 trillion debt, and that's without all the obligations put on top of it. No, our forecast for 2013 is more of the same, but worse. Everyone that's watching what's going on that doesn't have a political agenda or a belief system knows the reason why the economy is even at the level that it is. I mentioned too big to fail. Who would have thought that the Federal Reserve would make up this game called quantitative easing and just keep printing cheap money? You mentioned the markets going up. Gold also spiked up today as well, as the dollar is dropping. So every country, you name the country, there's of course, the United States, and then there's Europe. What are they doing in Europe? I got it. Let's make up some names, Lou. We'll call it ELTHRO, long-term refinancing operation. I got a better one for you. How about OMT, ongoing monetary transactions? Isn't that a nice little name? You look at the new prime minister now of Japan, Abe. What's the first thing that he did? He told the Bank of Japan to loosen up, get more money printed. They're printing money all over the world. Same thing in China. They're doing the same thing. They're dumping yuan into the market. So the only reason this is going on at the level it's going on is because they are printing money. Period, paragraph. So what we're going to see is the economy sputtering along as it is until there's the next crisis.
What do you think the next crisis will be?
I believe that the next crisis is going to be war. And I believe that they're gearing up for it and they know it. You could only attack so many countries so often before there's payback. As we used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. If you're going to attack somebody, they're going to attack you back. It's only a natural thing to do. Now, if you were Assad and I was Obama, because I wouldn't say if you be Obama and I be Assad, then you might get angry with me. You know? And I said to you, listen, you step down. I don't want to hear from you anymore. We're going to put somebody else in your place. And you would say to me, being a man, hey, listen, Junior, you may have more guns than I have, and your military is 100 times the size of mine, but guess what? You take me out, you're going out too. I have agents all over the United States. You want a dirty bomb in Atlanta? How about a suitcase-sized nuke in San Francisco? How about a little biological warfare in New York City? Look what happened, Lou, with Hurricane Sandy. Whew, the East Coast shuts down with a little bit of water. Could you imagine what would happen if this kind of thing happens? It's going to happen. In 2000, I was brought down to Virginia Military Institute. I had just come out with Trends 2000 a few years earlier, and they wanted me to talk about New Millennium Warfare, which I wrote extensively about. You know how they say the generals are always fighting the last war? You know, they're digging deeper trenches, you know, as tanks and planes are going over them, and one after another. This next war is going to be a war of weapons of mass destruction. And I believe that they know it. And I believe that's why they're abrogating all our rights. I believe that that's why, as every holiday season, Obama signs something when nobody's watching that rapes us of our rights, like the National Defense Authorization Act last year, and now the new signing of the warrantless wiretapping and spying indefinitely on American Citizens Act. So I believe we're going to war. The timeline is perfect. The crash of 29, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, World War. The panic of 08, the Great Depression, much of the world is in depression. Could you believe they even call it a recession in Spain and in Greece and in Portugal and in Italy, when you have on average about 24% unemployment, 50% youth unemployment? Currency wars. We heard Abe, the new prime minister of Japan, saying, quote, there's a currency war. We heard from Mervyn King, the outgoing head of the Bank of England, quote, there's a currency war going on. We heard from Montega, the finance cabinet minister of Brazil, there's a currency war going on. There's trade wars going on. The next step is world war.
Gerald, are they going to attack Iran too?
I believe so. And I believe, because look at again, let's look at the who the who is. The who is are a bunch of losers. They're the same losers that you're watching, these drama queens and beltway circle jerks that have just made this whole fiscal cliff drama beating in our damn heads since November. These are the same drama queens and beltway circle jerks that have engaged terrorism into our brains so that we have to get violated every time we go outside and try to get on a plane or a train. So these are the who, and everything the who touches turns to failure. We talked about the fiscal cliff. Hey, Lou, I got one. How about let's do a program. We call it No Child Left Behind. We're going to fix the education system. I got one for you. How about Obamacare? We're going to fix the healthcare system. No. How about a war on drugs? We'll spend trillions of dollars, lock up people for violentless crimes, and build the correctional industrial complex. Wait. Let's start a war in Afghanistan. It'll be the longest one in American history. We'll spend trillions, kill hundreds of thousands, wound many of our soldiers. What? 26,000 of them now are homeless after coming home fighting fruitless wars. Wait. Iraq. Let's do Iraq. We'll make it up. I got it. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. And then we'll get that little flunky out there, Colin Powell. Yeah, a real piece of Colin, getting up there with a 2-bit act on the UN saying, oh, look at that. I'll tell you, that's a mobile weapons of mass destruction 6x8 trailer that he's going to blow the world up with. Oh, wait. How about a humanitarian mission in Libya? So, are they going to attack Iran? They are a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths capable of doing anything. You want to talk about gun control? How about some real gun control? Starting at the top. This has become a culture of cruelty. Why shouldn't people be violent? They see the government being immorally violent. Why shouldn't people steal money? They see the big bankers stealing money. Hey, you got to be in it to win it.
Thanks to everybody who shops at Amazon.com. I wanted to mention that LRC gets a small commission at no cost to the buyer every time you go to Amazon through an LRC link, any of the widgets on the page for books or other items, or entering through the ad at the top left-hand corner of the front page. So thanks again, and it's a huge help. And Amazon, what a great company. It's just extraordinary. You don't need to go down to the local bricks and mortar place. You don't have to pay, in many cases anyway, sales taxes. So far as I can tell, virtually everything the human race produces is for sale at Amazon.com. So I highly recommend it. It helps keep LRC alive and growing. So thanks to all of you who shop at Amazon. Well, Gerald, I guess just exactly what we can expect from these people, from the bankster regime and all that. But I want to come back to a personal note about you. The last time we talked, you still had not gotten all your money back from MF Global, which had stolen a lot of precious metals from you. What's happening there?
Nothing. The big guys get the breaks. The word justice, Lew, is being misspelled. It should be Justus. Look at the scandal with HSBC, money laundering. Gee, I didn't know about it. It was only like a couple of $1 billion. Hey, how about the LIBOR scandal? What the hell's a LIBOR? Nobody's even talking about it. Oh, when they rigged the entire interest rate game worldwide. Oh, it happened by itself. I'll tell you, there was a trader down there that did the whole thing. Let's get him. How about all these fines for the Goldman Sachs gang, the JP Morgan Chase criminals? All they do is get fined, a slap on the wrist. Nobody does any time. The entire game is rigged. I began by saying too big to fail. The big corporations are in control. What is that? By definition, and the people that email me and say they're wrong, this isn't the definition, they're wrong. They're talking about, they're making stuff up. The definition of fascism, according to Mussolini, is the merger of state and corporate powers. The corporate powers are in control. They don't do any time. All their only time is to rape this country. It's money junkie time.
Gerald, you're exactly right. If we look at the American system and don't wear blinders, it is today a fascist system. It could get worse. It doesn't. Fascism comes in different brands, but it is the corporate state combined with militarism, combined with the suppression of civil liberties, the demonization of the other, and Muslims in this case, planning of the economy for the big corporations and against the rest of us. I mean, this is America's a fascist economy and a fascist state politically. It's not the land of the free anymore.
No, it's not. Oh, by the way, we have our top trends for 2013 coming out, and I have Gerald Celente's 4 Rules of Peace, and I mean them seriously. These guys, Lew, like to call themselves commanders-in-chief. You want to play commander-in-chief? Let's do like the old days. Be like Alexander the Great. Be like Attila the Hun. Be like Napoleon. You want to start the war? Lead the war. Start the fight. Really?
Yes.
Really.
Right.
I'm serious. If you're going to play the game and talk tough, if you're going to call them out, take them out or get out. That's number 1. Rule number 2, anybody that supports war, if you can't go fight, go send your wife, send your kids, send yourself to over there. There's a job for you on the front. We're sending all our money to military contractors. We could have people cook meals, heal wounds, whatever, make beds, clean the toilets. If you're for the war, you either fight the war, and you support the war. You get taxed. I don't want to get into their psycho trip. If you believe in it, fine. I don't. I shouldn't be held responsible. The third rule of war, Let the people vote. We don't need a bunch of little chicken hawks, these little boys that never even gotten a schoolyard fight, telling us that we should get in a fight and sending us to go do their fighting. Let the people vote. You want to go to war? Let the people vote. We do not have a representative form of government. We have a gang of 535 senators and congressmen that only represent the very powerful and the very rich. And of course, in that very powerful is the military-industrial complex. Rule number 4, the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. So if you get attacked or you attack somebody else and they attack back, don't call them Islamist fascists. Don't call them terrorists. Call it payback. You're getting back, reaping what you're sowing. Those are the 4 rules of peace.
Gerald, those are magnificent. Any other of your trends for 2013 you want to leave us with?
Yes, I want to leave you on it's not a positive, but it's a different, and it can be positive. You look at little children today. You know, the toy industry took a hit during Christmas because kids would rather have tablets than toys, more electronic stuff. People are addicted to these things, these handhelds. You see it all the time. You go into a restaurant, 4 out of 6 people sitting at a table and they're on their handhelds. These kids are wired very differently that are just being born and going through the system. I was talking earlier about education. Their minds are wired differently. They have to be taught differently. This is an opportunity for new millennium education like we've never recognized before. Everybody knows it's a digital age, but those of us that are old enough to remember, it only really started 20 years ago. And trends are born, they grow, they mature, reach old age, and die. This is only in the early growth stages, this trend. There's a whole new way of educating people. For better or for worse, yes, they're technologically hooked in. Their minds are thinking differently. We could have an entirely new education system. Just as brick and mortar is losing business to online, brick and mortar schools could begin to change. So something new is happening. And the entrepreneurs and the minds that want to look ahead, this is a field that I really suggest they look into deeply. The second trend that I want to talk about, and there are a number of others we don't have time to, food is going to be a big issue this year. Clean, safe food. And when you're in that business, it's going to be big business. And more of the grow local, buy local, and be local trend is also going to grow as well.
Gerald, thanks a million for all you do and all you try to teach us. Some of us can learn from you, outside of the Beltway anyway. I think more and more Americans are learning. I think people are beginning to see that they see through the government, see through the propaganda of the media. You're so important in that effort. So thanks for all you do. Thanks for coming on the show today, and look forward to reading all the 2013 trends.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all that you do. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Gerald. Bye-bye. Well, thanks so much for listening to the Lew Rockwell Show today. Take a look at all the podcasts. There have been hundreds of them. There's a link on the upper right-hand corner of the LRC front page. Thank you.